Hey guys, Jono here, and today we're going to build some DIY acoustic panels. If you're anything like me and you record your videos in a home studio or office, you probably get quite a lot of echo and reverb on your audio. So we're going to make some acoustic panels, hang them on the wall, and it's going to make our audio sound a lot more professional. So let's crack on with the video. So here are the materials that we're going to need for this kind of build. Some planed softwood for the frame, rock wool sound insulation slabs, some burlap fabric for the backing, and then the fabric of choice for the front. Next, onto the tools that we need. A tape measure, a ruler, a pencil, electric drill, a hand screwdriver, a bunch of wood screws, a square edge, a staple gun, with some staples of course, a saw for cutting the wood, and then finally a file. Okay, so the first step is to measure out and mark the lengths you need to make your frame. Now this is going to vary depending on the size of your insulation slabs that you've got. For my build, the sides need to be 123.5 centimeters long, and then the top and bottom pieces need to be 40 centimeters. So mark out all your cut lines on all the wood that you have, and then make sure you have a nice straight line, and then we'll be ready to cut the wood. Once you've marked out all the cuts that you need, go and grab your saw and start cutting all the pieces down to the required length. After you've cut all your pieces, I just took a file to the edge. This is just so we don't have any rough edges that could cause the fabric to rip when we apply it to the frame later on in the build. So you want to repeat this process until you've cut everything that you need to make the amount of panels that you want to build. At this point, you can lay out your frame, just making sure that everything lines up as it should and that you haven't made any mistakes. It's always good to double check everything as you're going along through the build. Next, we need to mark where we're going to be drilling the pilot holes for screwing the frame together. So what I did is I took one of the bottom pieces and lined it up with the edge of the side panel with where it's going to be mounted. I marked this with a pencil straight onto the side panel, and then I took a ruler just to find the centre point between the edge of the panel and where we've just marked. You can then use your square edge just to make sure you have a nice straight line, and then we're ready to drill the pilot holes. So take your drill and then make 2 pilot holes slightly smaller than your screws along the centre line that we've just marked. Just make sure that you don't go too close to the edge of the wood, otherwise it can split. Then you want to repeat this step for each end of every side panel that we have. Once this is done, we can then take our square edge and line up the top panel with the side panel, making sure that it's nice and flush and also square. Then you can take your drill and make some additional pilot holes in the top and bottom panels just so that we're ready to screw the frame together and it all lines up nice and flush. Then just take your wood screws and start putting the frame together. Now you could probably use your drill with a screw head bit, but for whatever reason I decided to screw the frame together by hand just to make sure that everything was lining up correctly and that I didn't split any of the wood. But if you want to use a drill, go ahead and do so. The pilot holes are there, so that will make everything line up and should make everything go together that little bit easier. Once you've repeated this, you should have all your frames finished, assembled, and they're ready for the insulation. But before that, we need to add our burlap onto the back of the frame, just so it holds the insulation slabs in place and stops them from falling out. What you need to do is lay the fabric out over the frame and take your staple gun and start attaching this to the wood. A good tip here is to start with the top and the bottom piece, making sure that you pull the fabric nice and tight, and then moving onto the sides, again pulling the fabric nice and tight so we create a nice strong backing sheet for the insulation slabs to sit on. Then what you might want to do is take a pair of scissors and just cut off any excess fabric that you might have, just so it leaves a nice clean finish. Once this is done for all the frames, you can then open up the insulation and start placing this into the frames. Now I'd probably recommend wearing some gloves because when you're handling this stuff it can be a little bit irritating on the skin. Now hopefully if your measuring was all correct, your slab should fit nice and snug into the frame that we've just made. Now all that's left to do is to attach our fabric to the front of the panels. So you want to cut it to size and lay it over the top of the panel, flip it over, and then we're ready to start attaching the fabric to the frame. You want to use a similar technique as we did when we attached the burlap to the back of the frame, but this time pulling the fabric round to the back to staple down. This is just to make sure that we have a nice clean finish the whole way around the panel. Again, I'd start from the top of the panel, moving down to the bottom, pulling nice and tight, and then moving onto the sides using the same technique. For the corners, you want to fold the fabric to create a nice, clean, angled fold on the top and the bottom pieces. Staple this down and make sure that it's pulled nice and tight. And there we have it. Repeat this for the other panels and then you're done with the build. Now you can get as creative as you want with this, changing the size and the colour and the texture of the fabric that you're using. But I kept it pretty simple and I made all my panels the same size, and I just chose 2 colours that would go well in my home office and studio. There we go guys, that is how we make my DIY acoustic panels. Now there's a lot of tutorials out there and there's a lot of different ways you can make them. I don't feel like there's a right or a wrong way. This is just what worked for me, so hopefully you guys followed along and enjoyed the video. But let's get these hung up on the wall and see the difference that it makes with the sound. To mount the panels, I've used some 100mm L-shaped brackets paired with some wall plugs just to mount these up to the wall. What this allowed me to do was have a nice gap between the wall and the panel, which will improve the functionality once these are up. I had one bracket on the top and one at the bottom just to mount it nice and securely to the wall. Repeat it for the other panels and then we're all done. There we go guys, the panels are up on the wall finally. It took a little bit longer than anticipated and it is now the following day, so hence why I'm wearing a different shirt, but I am really pleased with the result. I've got 6 panels up on the wall in total, 2 behind me, 2 behind the camera, and then 2 also on this wall which is behind my editing suite or my desk. And I can definitely say that I'm really pleased with the result. Not only do they look fantastic and add a real good aesthetic to the office, they act as a good purpose for sound. So you can already tell by this audio that it sounds so much better than what I was getting before. It's removed all that horrible echo, all that reverb that you just don't want and is impossible to remove in post, and it just sounds a lot more professional. So what I'll quickly do is just play another clip that I recorded yesterday and compare that to one that I recorded now with the sound panels, just so you can hear the difference. This is audio recorded without the sound panels, and this is audio recorded with the sound panels. I am over the moon with the results of these acoustic panels. They have made such a massive difference to the sound of my audio quality, and for the price that I paid to build them, which was roughly just under £100 for all the parts required to build 6 panels, is next to nothing to what these would cost to buy professionally. So I hope you enjoyed this little DIY project. It's something I've wanted to tackle for a while since I've moved into this space, just purely because the audio was so bad, but it's really made a big difference. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it, and leave a comment down below if you follow along and build your own, and let me know how you get on. But my name's Jono and I hope you enjoyed this video. Subscribe to see more, and I'll see you guys next week.